When I met Casey, my belief system was pretty solid. He began teaching me about living in the questions, and that the questions were okay, and that you didn't have to have the answer. Of course, you know, the main thing was that he loved the students, and so he didn't talk about leaving the whole world of woodworking and art furniture and everything. The only time he mentioned it was to compare woodworking to teaching philosophy, that chipping away the wood to see the beauty in the wood reminded him of chipping away at students' black-headed minds to help open them up to see a broader world. Casey found out that he had cancer in February, just really a year ago, February in 2016, and it went fast. We didn't think it was going to be that fast. We didn't really even think it was that bad in the beginning. But I realize now that whole year and right up until the end was more about him teaching us about how to live and teaching us how to die. And so the amazing thing is, after being married to him 27 years, I really didn't completely understand the relationship that he had with his students. Not really. Until he lay dying. And what he wanted me to do was he wanted me to open the door, and he sent out a message that all the students were welcome to come and hold his hand and talk to him as he lay dying. And so we opened the door, and long lines of students lined up. And as they came through, each one of them gave me so much love. And then they wanted to hold his hand and tell him how much they loved him. And at the very end, he could even no longer talk, and they didn't care. He wanted to die in such a way that he was an example of how you die. And the way that you die, my understanding of what he meant, is that you're fully engaged in the sadness. You don't try to hide it. It is part of the journey. So part of the reason that Casey is such a legend is that he started running naked early on, and he went out in the dark. He ran naked in the dark because he didn't want to run into anybody. So, I mean, like, we're 4 o'clock in the morning, he would leave to go running in the dark, and the only clothes he had on were his tennis shoes, and sometimes he went barefooted. But other than that, he was, buck naked. The reason that he ran naked was he was trying to blur the distinction between separation, and that he wanted to become the wind that he was running with, or the snow that he was running in, or the rain. And the only time that evidently it broke, it was like if he fell down, he tripped, and then all of a sudden he had pain, and he came back to the reality that we are separate. And I think Norma Jean is just another testament about that, to be fully engaged. Norma Jean is, she's a celebration of what she stands for. I, in the beginning, saw her as something that was ugly. I now understand that she represents diversity in a way that we all need to understand and accept it, and to see the beauty in that diversity. And that is what Casey wanted to do. He wanted to open up our minds, that we could see more and more beauty, let more and more light in, and less judgment, and less separation, that we're all one. And that was his lesson. I didn't know about all the other pieces of art that were down in our basement that had been packed away for 27 years. And so one of the first things that we uncovered was a box that were 2 wooden carved hands. And when I opened the box and saw that they were his hands, I was so moved by the beauty and the perfection that I saw in those hands. It was like, oh my God, who was this man? I mean, I knew that he had carved Norma Jean, and Norma Jean I understand is a work of art too. But somehow these unfinished hands with no stain and nothing on them, just raw to perfection. So that was another time that I had to ask the question, who is this man? How many other things are there about him that I don't know and that I never knew? And why he would have never talked about or bragged about the beautiful artwork that was in the basement for 30 years packed up, and now I find all these things. That's part of the enigma of John Casey's legacy, I guess. I'm on the other side, just looking back, just on the far side of the hill. I know that I have been there where you are, but now I'm on the other side, just looking back. And there's storms and thorns and death just on the other side, and less laughter than before, to know that just ahead a ways is an arrow in my head, and I'll never again be quite the same.